Welcome to your astrology and spirituality overview for Monday, the 25th of January.
Oh, thank you so much, Elisa. Today, Mercury, the planet of communication, in the sign of Aquarius, where it's exalted and governs the second decan, the second 10 degrees of that sign. Well, that's forging a semi-sextile with the planet Pluto today. So if we think about Pluto's about transformation, and it's in the very earthy Capricorn, and Mercury is in the sign of Aquarius, which is very much about higher ideals, I think this is a good balance between progression and an evolution, but making sure that we're balancing the book. So we're being practical, we're being realistic about our resources, but at the same time we are opening our minds to how we can do things in a different way. So a really nice balance. Mercury and Pluto combinations tend to give us penetrating insight. So Pluto can be about secrets, it can be about the underworld, it can be about what's hidden. So maybe if you're a campaigner or an activist, you're going to do some research today which will help you through the prism of Mercury to uncover some information which helps you to understand power more. Or it could be that if you're wanting to sign a deal on a job, this can be a very positive day to talk to an influential person, such as a lawyer or an accountant, who will give some discreet but very authoritative information. So that's coming through Pluto, but we can reach out through Mercury. Also, Mercury in Aquarius can be about networking, groups. It's about society as a whole. Who was the person who said that society didn't exist? It was Margaret Thatcher, of course. So society most certainly does exist, but it is taking a pounding, and we have to remember that it shouldn't just be about us, it should be about the wider implication of all that we do. So a balance, a thoughtful balance between that more material position of Pluto and the more progressive location of Mercury. Elisa, what cards have you chosen today?
Today we're using cards that match my jumper, which I didn't realise before now.
They don't look green to me.
You're okay.
God, your eyes are so red.
Sometimes.
Not for a long time.
No, for a long time. That must be my Pluto opposite Mars. Mars
No,
opposite Pluto.
You have Moon opposite Mars.
Oh, that was it.
And you have Mars and Pluto both in Scorpio, but in the 5th house of passion.
Hence the red eyes.
Hence no whistling in the mornings.
No whistling in the mornings. So we're using...
For me.
For you. I can whistle all over. I can't whistle. These are the Archangel Oracle cards.
Right, are we going to get Michael? Drum
I'm
roll.
feeling like you should pull one today. Just
Okay.
That's intuitively what is being told to me.
Alrighty. And the winner is...
Michael! You did. We had this actually last week. Same card, same message. You are safe.
Michael hasn't actually funded and infiltrated this person who's made these
He's
cards.
the sponsor.
You know, he's the sponsor, so it's like every third card.
I love it. He says, I'm protecting you against lower energies and guarding you, your loved ones, and home. We've had this card about 3, maybe even 4 times now. I think this is just that reassurance that as a collective, as a human species, that we will get through challenges. I genuinely believe that, because we've evolved, this far, and we will continue to evolve and change, and our society will change and shape and shift as we grow, and hopefully some of that growth will include vast spiritual growth. I think that will be very good.
Yeah, we've got to
us.
really... Do you know, it's funny you thinking about that, because I was thinking, we watched this film the other night. Was it called Dark Water? And it was all about the Teflon situation with DuPont in Wilmington. So we actually watched a documentary on this on BBC 4 about 2 or 3 years ago. Shocking.
Yeah,
and
really
I used to use Le Creuset, French cookware, but then I read that if you scratch them, the lead that they used and the bases can leach into your food, because I had a hair test done and my lead levels were quite high. But Teflon, or this stuff, this long chain chemistry that they invented in 1962, which gives everything a very smooth surface. So if you cook your fried egg, it doesn't stick to the pan. It just slides off onto your plate. But this stuff is like, we don't use it. And because I kind of knew about the Teflon thing years ago, that it wasn't good for you. But it's actually on carpets, it's on...
it's on everything. It said it's in 99.9% of every living thing on this
every
planet.
living thing. So not just us.
It's
got
plastic
into the water table. So this stuff's really, really bad. So I was thinking about, the point that Elisa's making. We've all seen leaders being archly self-interested. We've seen it time after time through COVID in this country, where the people who are supposed to be setting the agenda and following the rules then go out and don't follow the rules. And it's just happened time after time. It must have cost a lot of people their lives, because people must have thought, well, if it's good for them, it's good for me. It's not do as I do, it's do as I say. The most disastrous form of leadership. I don't know if you know, but as a very young man, I was involved in management. And by the time I was 28, I had about 800 people working for me. But it was never about confrontation. It was always about a dialogue. It's always about trying to sort of get people to go with you the best you could within that particular person's capabilities. And so, very Libra and ascendant manager, I suppose I was. But I do feel that we've had a big disengage. People don't trust leaders. They don't trust politicians. They don't trust banks. They don't trust corporations. And people like DuPont are the reason why. But when Elisa was speaking then, I was thinking weirdly earlier today, well, where do activists come from? Activists fight for rights, say for safety on a building site. If you go back 40 years ago, they would have been actually told to get lost. You're causing trouble. You're a troublemaker. But those people had the courage to stand, put their head above the precipice and keep raising their voice against injustice. And then we get change. But at the point when people are shouting about injustice, the more traditional side of society will say that these are troublemakers. So are we saying that about, say, the women's rights movement that came through? We're still finding out that in the British media, women get paid a heck of a lot less. British business, women get paid a heck of a lot less. There's still that injustice. So, yeah, we've got to believe that things will change, because if we think back about all the things that have changed, even though they're not perfect, they are in lots of ways a lot better than, say, 30 or 40 years ago, because people have had the courage to challenge how the orthodoxy was operating at that time, which was mainly under a cloak of secrecy. So
people have even sacrificed their lives in order to get us to this point.
Well, that's what the suffragettes was about, wasn't it? She ran in front of the horse.
Yeah, and then people were, starved, force-fed. I mean, it was just awful, really. But, now I can vote. Or I can choose not to vote, I have a choice now because of those people.
Well, there was a pub, I lived in a small village in Oxfordshire called Stevenson. It had been in Berkshire. It was a brilliant village. I was so happy there. And they had this causeway that the monks would walk along, and they would go to, I think, to Hungerford in Berkshire. And it was a really, really beautiful place, and streams and all sorts. And they had a pub there, and I remember when I went to this pub for the first time, it was just a hatch, so it was like a stable thing. So, pint of beer, please, and it would just come out the barrel. So it was turned on a key, not even a pull. And they only got their women only went in there, I think, from about 1962. Whoa. They only had a beer license to then they got a spirits license. Then women were let in. Same with golf clubs. There's another notorious tennis clubs, people like this, these sort of middle-class bastions or middle-class, the word that rhymes with bastions. So inclusiveness is something that some people may say is to do with woke. Well, no, I agree, woke can go far too far. So what we're talking about is just simple fairness where possible.
Yeah, and common sense.
Which usually comes down to good manners, actually.
It's common sense that, if a woman wants to work, she can, because then she can, pay taxes like a man can pay taxes. It makes common sense for the economy. It makes common sense that we have equal rights because it's better for everybody.
We do get, to be honest, that a lot of people do assume. Someone very lovely made the point that I was.
Yeah, you're basically the
sorcerer.
The sorcerer, and I'm sort of like
the apprentice.
The apprentice.
But I can tell you this with absolute truth. Lisa has taught me so much; it's unbelievable. And you teach me every single day something. So it is important not to sort of look at things in very stereotypical ways. We all do it. We're all tempted to do it, but we have to try and stop ourselves from doing it.
Yeah.
Self-monitor ourselves, if you like.
And you're right. We are all guilty of it, definitely, because that's just how our brains work, I suppose. But it's about not jumping to conclusions about people, situations, things just because we read it somewhere, or. And
even if we're not judging something in terms because someone's a bit different or they may have an interest we don't understand. The other thing is how our mind works in terms of our stories that we create, the dramas we create. Because often when we actually find out what someone really did say or what really did happen, it doesn't always fit what our mind was creating. Yeah. The fear, the more fearful story, the more negative narrative, if you like, because it all comes from the deeper sense of our wounded self, which not everybody has, of course, because they're very lucky to have very loving and stable parents and starts to life, which is not based on money, I don't believe, alone. It's good to have enough money to get by, of course, but it's based on just that sense of nurture and validation. To validate someone is the greatest thing we can do for any person in this life. So even if there's someone, I get people writing to me on the more political videos I do who really put me right. But I just write and say thank you very much for your share, because they have an opinion which they're totally entitled to share. As long as I don't think they're being absolutely, totally, madly and unfactual, I think that's fair enough.
Yeah, it is.
So, have a wonderful start to the week. And obviously we've got a very powerful full moon this week in the sign of Leo. And that's also going to be coming into contact with the rather raucous energies of Mars. Please... could we put the new moon, the full moon video under this one? Yeah. So Leo full moon under this video. That's coming on Thursday. But wishing you all the best this week from the A Society team.
I like that. It's goodbye from him.
And it's goodbye from her. Goodbye.